Eureka! You found us! Welcome to the Check Out California radio show, your key to California hospitality. Hosted by Rad Gantos, principal of Rad Gantos & Associates, a hospitality and commercial real estate design firm, and Craig Sullivan, founder and president of the California Lodging Investment Conference. Check Out California is focused on our state's hospitality, travel, and tourism markets, and on the large part they play in California's vibrant and economic diversity and unique quality of life. Now, here are your hosts, Rad Gantos and Craig Sullivan.
Good afternoon and welcome to Check Out California. I'm Craig Sullivan.
And I'm Rod Gantos. And we're sitting on opposing sides of the desk because...
We're playing with you today.
We're messing with you.
Yeah, we've got one guest who's called in, and full disclosure, he's an old friend. He's represented me in companies that I've worked at. Mr. Mitch Miller from the Miller Law Group. Welcome, Mitch.
Well, hello, Craig. How you doing?
Great. You got Rad here, and you've also got our version of White Fang, Paul, the engineer.
Somebody's got to Google that, White Fang. You really dated yourself on that one.
I did. I'm fully aware that I'm old. I'm good with that. So, there's no problem with
before
that.
you lunch, and I got to say, when I was a kid, I don't really remember, that was Soupy Sales.
That
was Soupy Sales show, and he started in Detroit on local TV, so I saw him years before you guys
started
did.
with Soupy Sales.
He used to have little White Fang, the little character would come out and talk during Soupy Sales.
Anything else you need to get out, Paul, out of your system?
Yes, we are on the air, Mitch.
Can you hear us, Mitch?
Do you know how Soupy Sales got thrown off the air?
I remember he did, and I don't remember how.
Yes, for money.
So he stood out, he was on camera, right? And he held up a $5 bill or something like that. And he said to the little kids, he said, "Now go into Mommy's purse, and you can get one of these. I'm sure you can find it with this picture on it. And go and send it into Soupy Sales."
That's right, I'd forgotten that, yeah.
Too much, yeah.
It's out there.
Yeah.
Well, they used to also have nude women walk by.
I had the good fortune of meeting Soupy Sales a number of occasions.
You did?
Dad was a friar at the New York Friars Club for nearly 50 years. And,
there you go.
I grew up at the Friars Club, basically, in New York.
Well, that's a whole other show, guys. So let's talk about hospitality.
Let's talk
Mitch,
Soupy Sales.
Mitch, tell our audience about your background, please.
Well, sure, but first I got to give a little disclaimer, Craig. So
sounds like an attorney.
Well, yeah, really. So last night I pull into this little strip center and I see the sign says Turkish Bakery. I'd never been in a Turkish bakery in my life, so I went in there, being addicted to sweets as I am. And
I was going to make a bad joke.
I see this gorgeous array of pastries in front of me. And so the nice lady took me through and described all the different pastries. Of course, I couldn't decide which one, so what was the only thing one could do?
Probably one of each.
I'll take one of each!
Yeah.
So I brought them all into the office this morning, and we've all been munching them all morning, and I guess I'm buzzed on sugar today, so...
There you go.
Yeah.
So on our side of the disclaimer, I would like to disclaim the fact that our guest is high on sugar, and my co-host is basically having one of those moments where I guess because he went through 200 emails before 11 o'clock in the morning, he is feeling like very, very strong. His cape is flowing. And
Batman.
I was going to say the big S on your chest, but your bagman will be right
Batman.
there.
That's why I got an Alfred.
So saddle up, people. It's going to be an interesting show.
So, Mitch, before we do that, we've got breaking news.
What's that?
We got breaking news. We're waiting for the sound effect.
Breaking news. That's the breaking news.
There we go. IHG unveils new brand, Atwell Sweets. So here we go. I think we had one new brand a month for about 45 months. We had a 2-month break, and now we've got another new brand.
I was feeling like I was having withdrawal symptoms from not having a brand launch every month.
Hey, you know what? This new brand for IHG is going to do phenomenally well. This is going into the extended stay segment, and they're going to be an upper mid-scale property that is really sounds promising. It was unveiled to the owners meeting, to the owners group meeting not too long ago, and I think also they've got mock-ups at the HD Expo that's going on in Vegas. And for a change, neither Rad nor I are in Vegas for HD. So anyhow, Mitch, tell us and our audience all about your background, please.
So, okay, sure. So I guess I have a bit of an eclectic background, which is, I guess, one of the keys to my value add in the marketplace. And so I really, the day I walked out of high school, I was fortunate enough to literally 3 weeks later, at 18 years old, walked into Jocko Brothers Plumbing and Heating in New York City. At the time, we were building, amongst other things, the World Trade Centers in New York. And so I became the payroll manager and the accounts receivable manager and financial clerk to the treasurer of the company. And sort of having not come from money or any wealth of any sort, was picking up checks from the Port Authority of, $1.3 million a month for progress payments, and wow, there's some money in this real estate industry, and that sort of turned me on to the whole thing. So
that or the Port Authority, so one of the two or both.
Yeah, right. So I ended up working for developers all through college, and then when I came out to California to go to Santa Clara University, where I got a law degree and a business degree, I started a nonprofit housing development company, which was the third in California, as far as I know.
Wow.
This is way back when, and it still exists.
What's it called, Mitch?
Community housing developers based in Santa Clara County. And so, I was dating this beautiful and brilliant woman, and she said, "You want to go to these alternative energy lectures?" I said, "Sure." I'd go anywhere with her, actually. And so, sure. Well, anyway, she got rid of me and went back to Johns Hopkins to start graduate school as a geologist. And I kind of got interested in all of this. And there's all these social workers from San Jose State who has an excellent program in community organization.
Yeah, they do.
And they had this idea. Well, you need a bulldog to get something like that actually done, so I was the bulldog. So
no, not you, bitch.
There you go. I dropped out of law school for a year, got a contract between Santa Clara University and Catholic Social Services. Santa Clara University is a Jesuit school, so it's got a very, incestuous relationship between the
dioceses and... Yeah.
There you go. And we got it launched, got all the CDBG funding for the year, and helped set up the board, and it was actually incorporated the organization, wrote the initial business plan, and got all that funding, and it still exists. It's kind of cool.
That's very cool. That's a story of yours that I've never heard before. You and I go back, close to 20 years, worked on deals, refinances, acquisitions, and everything else you could think of.
How does it feel to have been part of that, Mitch, at this point?
It's very gratifying.
Yeah.
I've always been socially altruistic, if you will, and, always fighting for the underdog in this world. And
yes, he has.
Being able to make a contribution.
Never enough people like that, but
sector of people was very gratifying.
Yeah.
We did a lot of senior and disability housing. We did sweat equity programs, sweat equity programs for people. It was gratifying. It was very cool.
We need you guys down here. You know that?
Pardon?
We tried to get him to move down here.
We need that program. We need that kind of a program down here. We really do.
There are some in Southern California already. I mean, they're all over the state now. But this, again, was, I think, typically Berkeley was the first, I think.
Doesn't surprise me.
There was
Mitch, I'm gonna put out a personal request here. If you have any information relevant to that, those kind of resources down here, would you please share them either through Craig or directly with me? Because I really would love to share those. We are in a situation where we really need some of that out-of-the-box thinking, I think, down here.
Well, sure, absolutely. Be my pleasure.
Thank you.
And so anyway, I graduated. So I had dropped out of law school for a year. Being with I'd moved 3,000 miles from the East Coast.
Right.
Fell in with 1,000 wannabe lawyers, and was felt like stifled. Hardly knew anybody else in the community at that point. I'm like, wow, 1,000 wannabe lawyers. You can imagine, Craig. And so this was perfect. So it enabled me to get out for a year. I went through the business program at Santa Clara and the Levy School of Business for a year, got my MBA, And, that was interesting, especially at a Jesuit university. The subject of ethics came up at that time. And obviously, given to what I just said about as housing, I'd like to think of myself as an ethical individual. And a conversation came up about the Ford Pinto case, which was relevant at the time.
Yeah.
And we were in this class, 40 people or so in the class, and over half the class thinks that Ford made the right decision doing a cost-benefit analysis on people's lives.
Oh, my God.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, every expletive in the world is going through my mind, and I'm going to keep my mouth shut, but what are you people, crazy or something?
Yeah.
So anyway, so business school was interesting, and I studied finance and marketing primarily there. Moved on, practiced law for a few years, and then I was fortunate and blessed to have met Norm and Nan Rosenblatt. I was introduced by a friend of ours and somebody who worked for them, one of their hotels, and they are kind of really the mother and father of the boutique hotel industry. A lot of people lay claim to it. Nan Rosenblatt is definitely the mother of the boutique hotel world, if you ask me. We had a number of divisions. We had a corporate apartment division, which was really a precursor to Airbnb. We had 75 corporate apartments in San Francisco. We had several four-star little boutique hotels. Nan was hired by Bill Kimpton to do his first hotel, the Bedford Hotel in San Francisco, and we went on to do 8 more of Kimpton's hotels. So we did Kimpton's first 9 hotels.
There you go.
And Nan was the designer. Nan really did them. So if you ask me, if Kimpton is the greatest boutique hotel company that has ever existed, then, or most successful, I should say, I don't know, like greatest, but most successful, then Nan is largely responsible for that. And the Bedford was 1981. I don't think Schrager doesn't date back to 81. I don't think.
I think that was still his Studio 54 days.
He was having too much fun in D.C. in New York.
I think he was in 1981 was still fighting the taxing authorities. So, but in any event, so they hired me, and it was great. We met at MacArthur Park in Palo Alto over lunch. Lunch was what, 12:30, I don't know. We sat there for 4 to 5 hours. They were already starting to serve dinner there.
There you go.
Really getting to know one another. Well, MacArthur Park is kind of a high-end rib house, and they have sort of white butcher paper on the tables, and they put crayons, a little jar of crayons on the table, so you can, doodle as you wait for your food or whatever.
And you wrote out a contract, didn't you?
We wrote the contract.
I'm cut right to the chase. I knew that one was coming.
Funny.
Come on.
Yeah, it was great. And I was so fortunate and blessed. I felt, and I was specifically hired to develop a 4-star ground-up boutique hotel in Palo Alto, California. The Garden Court Hotel. And,
hey, Mitch, I need to interrupt you a little bit. You're holding the phone too close to your face, and it's scratching quite a bit on our side.
Pull it away a little bit.
Okay. Sure.
There you go.
Better, yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, much better. Thanks, Mitch.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. And so I was hired to develop the Garden Court Hotel.
Nice.
Kind of an interesting experience. I was 29 years old. And about 2 weeks after I was hired, my first general partners meeting. So Norm and Nan were 2 of the general partners, 2 gentlemen from Palo Alto who owned the real estate. Sam Webster and Ernie Castle were the other 2 general partners. And they said, so what do you think? And I guess the youngest person outside of me in the room was probably almost twice my age. And so anyway, it was a little daunting, but I said, well, here's what I think. I think you ought to fire your lawyers. I think they're stupid in taking you to the cleaners. Now, of course, their lawyers were the largest law firm in California at the time, Gibson, Dunn & Crutcher, who recommended that they have an intra-state public offering and had already charged the partnership $63,000 and weren't finished. And it is back in the 80s.
Yeah, $63,000 is worth $63,000. Yeah.
Exactly. And the financial...
Maybe $1.20 today.
And the financial ratios, the debt equity ratios, were not sufficiently compelling to motivate investors.
Yeah.
So I said, well, you ought to fire Gibson, Dunn, and Crutcher, and I think we need to go, instead of 50-50, I think we need to go at least 60-40 debt to equity, and
there you go.
And we'll get this baby done. And so Sam Webster, whose lawyer was one of the great tax lawyers, recently passed, good friend of mine named Dave Mitchell. He was one of the most renowned tax lawyers in California over the past 30, 40, 50 years. And so he was Sam's personal lawyer. He calls up Dave. He says, Dave, this punk just said to me this afternoon, he says the following, blah, blah, blah. He says, what do you think, Dave? He says, I think he's right. We fired Gibson Dunn that week, hired Dave's firm, Hopkins, Mitchell, and Carley, now Hopkins and Carley, and developed the Garden Court Hotel, which is just a magnificent hotel.
Yeah. Now, you've worked with a lot of different owners over the years, and you've done a lot of development deals. You've done a lot of repositioning. You're a deal attorney. But that's just part of the many prongs of your practice. What are some of the other things you're doing in your practice, Mitch?
Wow. So the firm, I officially, after running that company as COO under Norman Nann, and then moving on with Hotel Group of America and the Lemby organization for a number of years and helping them do a turnaround there, I went out and I bought a high-tech manufacturing company, did a turnaround there, sold out my interest there, and then moved on and ran a little mini conglomerate back in the Northeast for a while. I came back I was traveling all the time, and I came home one night, rang the doorbell, and I heard somebody say from the inside, Mommy, there's some guy at the door.
Oh.
I said, oh, shit, I've been on the road too long. Pardon my French.
Sorry, you're good.
I'm giving the FCC your street address.
we appreciate such things on this show.
So I completely changed my life and decided, I'm going to see my kids raised, and I'm going to stay here in Palo Alto.
Good for you.
And I launched Miller, a previous iteration of Miller Law
Group.
And so I've been doing that since 1996. And we are an industry-focused firm. Hotels are clearly our biggest sector, and we represent developers, owners, operators, and management companies in this arena. And we're full service, so this week I'm working on 3 construction loans. I'm working on 1 permanent CMBS loan.
You're a busy guy.
Over a development agreement that we wrote to a municipality in California. And so it's just all kinds of different projects, high-level projects. So industry-wise, hotels clearly our biggest sector. Then commercial real estate, particularly in the retail sector, and that includes restaurants, and somewhere hospitality and restaurants are close cousins, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
And, because we're in Palo Alto, we also represent some tech interests, which makes it very interesting to me because in hotels, I'm a franchisee advocate, no question about it.
Yeah.
And in the tech world, if I'm representing software developers, I'm a licensor advocate.
You're on the other side of the fence. Yeah.
Agreement. So on one side I'm a licensee advocate, and the other side I'm a licensor advocate, and it makes for a great depth of understanding of license agreements.
Yeah.
So we also, one of the founding premises of the firm, and when it was just me, which is in starting out, I had always observed that private business owners and high-level executives do not adequately integrate their business strategies with their family wealth strategies.
Typically not,
and there's a myriad of opportunities to do that.
Yeah.
So I began to, I had already had experience and studied a lot of tax in law school, and if there's any law student listening to this.
There aren't. We don't allow that.
Lawyer,
We can't have law students listening and an attorney on. It's either or.
Okay. And so I always encourage them to take as much tax as they can in law school.
Well, Mitch, to that point, you've kind of opened the door. What do you think about the recent changes, especially as it impacts us in California? Because, I mean, it has ramifications on investments all over the place, right? I mean, with the new tax code?
Well, yeah, sure. So, you have this whole opportunity zone thing, which I'm working on a project, actually, as we speak, in opportunity zone.
In California?
Issues. In California. And
you're doing the hotel component?
Yes. I'm representing a hotel owner who recently bought a hotel in an opportunity zone. And so we're certifying, we're in the process right now of certifying them and letting them know what they need to do to realize all of the tax benefits. So the way the opportunity zones work, if you take proceeds and that you got from a capital gain from a sale of an asset or a business or stock, and you invest it into an asset, either a fund, a qualified opportunity fund, or directly into a business that will own a qualified opportunity zone business, then you are eligible to realize the benefits of the opportunity legislation, opportunity zone legislation, which essentially are that if you hold for 5 years, you get a 10% increase in basis. Increasing the basis means then when you sell, you get a reduction in your capital gains
tax
and ultimately capital gains tax. If you hold for 7 years, I think you get another 5% off, or 5% increase in the basis. If you hold for 10 years, your basis increases to the fair value at that time, 10 years hence.
Wow.
And then so if you sold the next day, your gain would be zero.
Wow.
Yeah.
Essentially eliminating capital gains tax on that original sale. Great thing. It's in some ways it's kind of like a 1031, except you can wipe out the tax. With a 1031, if you carry them long enough, you die.
Right.
In which case, then the family gets a step up in basis, so they wipe out the capital gains tax that way. I prefer the 10 years, and maybe I can.
Right, 10 and out. Yeah, I like that idea a lot better than death.
Yeah. So I think that is a very interesting piece of legislation, and it's somebody described a colleague described it as one of the great tax gifts given to investors in this country's history.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
And I think that might be true.
Yeah, I'm trying to bone up on the opportunity zones. It's definitely a hot topic, and you and I were both at Meet the Money, and it came up. So,
right. Of course, if you buy existing assets, you have to go through what's called substantially improving the business in order to be eligible. Because, philosophically, the whole rationale and motivation for the legislation is that we're going to create jobs, we're going to create economic growth and all of that, which is smart. It's great. Okay, I'm all for that. So in order to, you can't just buy an asset and then be eligible. If you're going to buy an existing business/asset, then you need to substantially improve it, which means that you need to essentially invest at least the adjusted basis at the time you begin the improvements. And so that can be a lot of money.
Right.
And in a smaller property, you may never have the need to spend that much money on an existing asset. But there are ways to deal with that.
Well, I think there's a couple of things there, Mitch. I think one on the smaller, older hotel, especially considering all the new brands that are coming in, and I don't know what the ratio is to existing businesses and hotels in particular to a new built in that opportunity zone. But, everybody's got to deal with this new shiny hotel. This spotlight's all on them. Everybody, our biggest issue right now, besides taxes in this state, is our labor force.
Right, regulations.
And
added
but that's only a small part of it. The other part of the equation is we can't find staff. We've done a horrible job recruiting people into our industry.
Yeah, there's an absolute lack across the industry.
And if you look at some of the newer brands, they are designed with intent to have a smaller operating team than some of the other hotels. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how all this plays out.
Well, and your attention span or your spotlight time.
What?
Yeah, exactly. Your spotlight time or the time in the spotlight, because of the fact that every month, we jokingly say every month there's a new brand that comes out.
Yeah.
In a particular market, you may have had, you may have been the belle of the ball, if you will, for about a year or two.
Yeah.
Now you're lucky if you get 6 to 8 months out of it, especially with so much inventory basically already online, getting ready to basically be released in particular markets. So it is interesting because, yes, it's a brand new. And then, what else you got for me?
Yeah.
3 months later.
Yeah, and how about adaptive reuse? How does that work in that scenario in the opportunity zone, Mitch? Let's say I've got
Is that encouraged?
7 to 8 story building. I want to throw a roof deck pool and bar restaurant scenario up there. I want a lobby bar and restaurant. I want a couple of other things, besides some meeting space on the ground floor, and I want, roughly about 90 to 110 keys.
Are the incentives there for doing something like that?
Well, you can certainly utilize the.
And it's OP, other people's money. Come on.
No, you can certainly utilize that, but the deal has to work. Never do a deal for tax purposes.
No, never.
No.
No, we're not saying that.
No.
Yeah, not saying that. I'm just saying if it works.
By definition, almost, if you're investing in opportunity zones, many of them may be somewhat on the fringes or margins of, where people would want to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And so am I buying a vacant warehouse where I can convert it and do this adaptive reuse with a beautiful pool deck on the roof and the bar on the roof and everything, and have a lovely hotel? Then nobody's going to want to go to that neighborhood.
That's true.
And so, but to kind of back to Craig's question, you will be able to do that, and probably, the substantial improvement, you're definitely, in all likelihood, you're going to meet those criteria in that kind of a situation. But is it a smart business deal? Well, you got to analyze each one of those on a case-by-case.
Yeah, and if you're looking at more than a long term than a quick flip, I think that, you've got some legs there, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and I just want to get this in before we go to a commercial break. I look at Oakland. I think Oakland, like Long Beach, is all an opportunity zone. And there's a lot of activity in Oakland right now, not just conversions to lofts and all that. You've got some really nice new hotels coming into the area. You've got some great buildings with the right footprint to convert to a hotel.
Well, infrastructure in reinvestment, neighborhood beautification. That town has actually been.
Okay, you could have gone all day without neighborhood beautification.
Well,
that's in the eye of the beholder.
Well, but I think
you like graffiti, I like Rembrandt. Okay,
I'm just talking,
or the other way around. I don't know which it is.
I'm talking relevant to Oakland because I have family that lives there, and I've seen it over the last 10 years. There's been a conscious effort, and leadership to develop that
post JB.
Yeah. So then it makes sense for those opportunities to come along because there's infrastructure commitment, there's leadership and advocacy moving in the same direction to elevate that whole area.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity in Oakland.
Right, and to that point, let's face it, the Bay Area is on fire economically, forgetting the hotel world for a second.
Yeah, everything else. Salesforce and all the construction cranes,
the biotech industries, obviously the IT industries, they're all just on fire. This is the center of the commercial universe. 30+% of all domestic venture capital funding occurs out of the peninsula here. Much of that money stays in the region. Not all of it, but much of it does. And companies now and employees obviously are moving to the East Bay, where Oakland is, to find more affordable housing. They can't. The roads are jam-packed. You can't commute.
I've been on them.
So hey, it's L.A. from San Francisco to the Mexican border.
Yeah, if you're a tech business starting up right now, you can get much more affordable lease rates over in Oakland than you can in downtown San Francisco.
Yeah.
And so there's much incentive and motivation for economic development on its own, forgetting the taxes for a moment again. But so, but the fact that Oakland is in an opportunity zone makes a lot of sense to make investment more interesting and maybe more desirable.
Starwood Capital, I posted an announcement on my social media pages. They're going heavy into opportunity zones. And on that, Mitch, we're going to go to a commercial break. So we need you to hang on for a little bit, and then we'll be back.
Hi, this is Ryan Huntsman with Chicago Title Company, located in beautiful Newport Beach, California. We're a national hub for our company, so we service the entire nation very efficiently with one of the largest national footprints in the industry. As part of the Fidelity family of companies, we get to enjoy and boast about being ranked number 302 on the Fortune 500 list. We're very proud of our tenured staff as they handle some of the most complex and high liability transactions across the country in a very professional and pragmatic fashion. Finally, many people are unaware of all the ancillary services that our Fidelity family of companies has to offer, including 1031 exchanges, UCC services, home warranty services, and much more. So if you haven't created a strategic partnership with a solid title company representative, I urge you to reach out to myself or someone else at Chicago Title to get the most of what we have to offer. Thank you.
Are we back? Are we back?
And we're back.
Paul, are we back?
Yes, we're back. This is
California. I wish I could record what you guys say offhand, but
I'm surprised.
Well, I think
I know the government is.
I think you should just let it hang, Paul.
Yeah, just let it hang.
all right, we'll let it
a little to the left.
We'll let it hang right there.
Mitch, don't mind us. We're just letting it hang out here.
Just by the way, before we get off of the taxes issue, because 199A, the qualified business deduction provision that's been added to the code for the private owners that I read. Most of most private businesses are pass-through entities, either S corporations, LLCs, or limited partnerships.
Right.
And the 199A new provision, which provides a 20% deduction of net income off of your 1040, is a tremendous opportunity. Now, there's a lot of limitations on that, and it's not the subject of we shouldn't get into such detail on this call, but it's a tremendous opportunity, and there are a lot of ways for real estate owners to utilize that provision to tremendous advantage.
Correct.
And should be looking into that.
Mitch, let me ask you something. I mean, what are some of the projects that you're working on right now, and specifically the state of California, that you are kind of excited about, or things that you can share? I think it'd be nice if we can just give people
names,
some
phone numbers, dollar amounts, social security numbers.
Yeah, like I said, whatever information you would like to share, ignore Greg.
He always has.
Well, so this should be okay for him then. Yeah. Just be easy. But I'm just curious, you give some specifics on some projects that you're working on?
Well, I'm not sure what kind of specific, there's many specifics on it.
What are you working on that you're excited about right now?
What am I working on? Well, I'm in the process of planning out an estate on the back end of a sale for an aircraft engine modification company that we represent, with sort of the global leader, and we represent one of the owners of that company. It's going to sell, hopefully, at some point in the future, and at that time, we're setting up the owners for having a great situation and very tax-advantaged situation. And unfortunately, they're an S corporation, And so using charitable trusts work great. Charitable trusts exist not for charity, but exists for living people who are liquidating large assets to save capital gains taxes and use the savings on the capital gains tax to invest for themselves and create annuity streams for themselves for the duration of their lives and their spouses' lives. And so there's unfortunately, charitable remainder trusts don't work with S corporations. But besides that, there's other kinds of trusts, charitable lead trusts and other forms of trust that we are using and setting up for that. So that's a very exciting project, in part because it's a lovely couple that I'm working with, and it's always the people is what it's about. We just finished up a deal doing a ground lease. I can't believe how much a 33,000 square foot fast food place can rent for in Silicon Valley, but it's a huge amount of, it's...
Oh, I imagine it's astronomical. Now, is it inside a hotel?
No, it's just a freestanding site.
Did you say 33,000?
This particular client also owns a number of hotels that we have worked on, and do work on. But in this particular case, it was just a renegotiation of a 20-year ground lease.
Of a 33,000 square foot fast food restaurant.
That's a lot of fast food.
Yeah.
A lot of fast food, and the parties were $10,000 or more than $10,000 apart, and the fast food company was trying to bully us into doing whatever. But my client can't be bullied. He's a very wealthy man, and so although he's a very wonderful gentleman, he's not going to be bullied.
Right.
And so first it was funny. Our first appraisal came back and was sort of between the two. And I called up the appraiser, said to my client, I said, come on, this is worth more than this. And he says, talk to the appraiser. So I called up the appraiser, and I said, Norm, you would not rent this property for what you put on that piece of paper. You would not sell the property for what you put on the piece of paper. I said, you have comps from all over the region, 30 miles away. I don't know what you're talking about, Norm. If you were in Manhattan, this would be like using East Harlem comps to value a Times Square piece of real estate. I said, get back to the drawing board.
You notice how it sounded like he was asking a question, but really he wasn't.
He wasn't.
Was telling him.
Yeah, he was telling
Norm.
Yeah.
How the bear goes down around the meadow.
And I did my own analysis, and Norm came back, and he was still a little under my analysis, but my client being a gentleman, he says, well, okay, let's offer that to them.
Yeah.
So we offered that. This was great. So we offered that to, this is about a year in negotiation, and we offer that to them, and they get on the phone, the vice president of development of this big company, and blah, blah, blah. We can't afford to pay that kind of money. It's got to be at least 25% less than that, and blah, blah, blah. And so I said, okay, so they think it's just this blowhard mouthpiece lawyer who's on the phone.
It's the blah, blah effect.
What's going on? I said, I think they need to hear this from you.
Oh, my God.
So I said, can I patch this guy back in? He said, sure, let's get him on the phone. So I get the two of them on the phone, and they talk for 3 minutes, and the VP guy is maintaining the same position and posture, and my client says, we don't have a deal. And by the terms of the lease, my lawyer tells me you need to be out in 30 days. We would like to have you out in 30 days. And hangs up the phone.
Nice.
3 days later, I get a letter from the general counsel of that company, big company, accepting the terms of our request.
Of your generous offer. Yes, there you go.
Our generous offer.
You just needed time to mull it over.
Love it. Hey, Mitch, there's a couple of things I want to cover. We're down to our last, less than 20 minutes.
$1,000 pop for my clients over 4 or 5 years.
Nice. Hey, what are you seeing hotel-wise trends that are, affecting development right now?
Well, there's an enormous amount of money available, and the internal rates of return that are compelling investment have diminished substantially. So, Craig, when you and I were once young,
That was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
If you wanted to get equity money to do a development, you had to be north of 20 and probably closer to 25, 23%
Correct.
IRR, whatever, for a development project. If you're doing an existing asset, 18 to 21 might get the job done in terms of IRRs. Now you're seeing, 3-4 points off of each one of those.
Wow.
And so great, okay, fine. So there's a tremendous amount that frees up obviously a tremendous amount of equity.
Yep.
And all these men and women who are employed to invest that equity money.
Yeah.
They're going to do so, and they are doing so. And so we see in California. I mean, I was just looking at this. I couldn't believe these numbers. In Southern California last year, there were 16,700 hotel rooms under construction.
Yeah, it's kind of insane, isn't it? It's crazy.
That's insane. And L.A. Orange County, over 2018 over 2017 was up 90%.
Yeah.
So there's 3,100 rooms under construction, a lot of which are in Anaheim.
It's crazy.
You've got Marriott opening up 115 new hotels in L.A. over the next 18 to 24 months, too. So there is a lot of that, but we're still we've still got demand outpacing everything, and most of that's in the select service arena. Now, our friend Ron Kim, his group is doing the JW Marriott here in the Anaheim Resort area. And I was talking to him the other night, and I can't wait to have lunch with him because I know they topped off the building and they had a ceremony about that, and they're getting closer and closer. And that's going to be a crown jewel in the Anaheim Resort area. I'm really looking forward to that. So, okay, Mitch, we're down to our last 15 minutes, so I want to give this to you. You and I were having a conversation the other day, and you were talking to me about a new investment platform.
Okay, so it's not. You've got it close, Craig. So,
okay. I wasn't taking notes. What can I say? I wasn't recording you
when I told him about this. So he was. But we've had this idea, and we've worked on this a little bit with clients. But it seems to me that this strategy works for many businesses in California as well as across the country. And so for a business owner, we take the profile of a business owner, 45 to 55 years of age, very successful business. They'll have like 1 and 2 assets. 1 is the business and 2 is their residence. And so if they go to a financial advisor says, "You're way too concentrated. You should be diversifying."
Right.
Well, they say, "I'm not selling my business. Forget about it." So here's a strategy. They take 30% of their business, and they don't the stock or the membership units in an LLC. They donate it to a charitable remainder trust. They simultaneously form a employee stock ownership plan, known as an ESOP, and it has to be at least 30% to satisfy the ERISA rules for an ESOP. And so the CRT now, the Charitable Remainder Trust, sells the 30% of the stock to the ESOP on a note. In that year of the donation, the owner gets a huge 1040 tax deduction for the charitable deduction that they made. Mm-hmm. And then the company, through a profit-sharing kind of plan, as profits exist, makes distributions, pre-tax distributions, to the ESOP that takes the cash and funnels it up to the Charitable Remainder Trust. That sale it's not tax-free, but it's way deferred and can enable. So if you, for example, quick example, $10 million business, 30% of the stock, $3 million goes into the CRT. Tax savings or tax on that if you sold it in the marketplace would be $1 million. So you have a tax savings of $1 million here, and you take that $1 million over 10 years, that money should double. And so you just created $2 million in wealth. Now you have to, at some point, you're going to take out some of that money and it will be ordinary income on your 1040, but that's
Right.
way down the road. And so this is, and particularly for businesses, I like this for hotel management companies particularly, because you have typically a loyal team and a
large group of
Large
associates.
group of
skilled
Yeah.
team, and it's a way of motivating that team and making them all really invested in the business.
Yeah.
And so you get the benefits of all of that contributing to the success and performance of your business. In addition, you get this huge tax benefit, and so I think it's an incredible program for the right kinds of companies. Again, can't be S corporations, can only be
Right.
LLCs and
Cs, right.
LPs, limited partnerships.
You know, what's interesting. What's interesting about this, Mitch, is it also could potentially deal with a couple of things. Could deal with retention, and it could
Right.
it could really deal with sort of loyalty, because a lot of places we
Both,
just we
right.
and
Hammers-
and we
boom, right on the
and we
nail.
just touched base on that a minute ago about the fact that the industry is actually lacking. Like, we have a major staffing issue. And I've seen it property over property, and some that you would be very surprised, very surprised
Yeah.
about is that a lot of times there's a retention problem, and retention problems have an additional layer of seriousness to them. Is if that property basically now goes on the market, and somebody goes in to basically buy it, and they basically start digging a little deeper past the glossy, 8x10 front of house. And they start realizing there's a cultural retention problem and staffing issues and things of that nature. All of a sudden, something that looks like a glossy, jewel on the hill,
Right.
basically starts smelling like a lemon. And so it's interesting. I think that's probably a smart internal business decision to advocate for loyalty, self-vestment into the property, and then also deal with this retention problem. It's been going around for a while now.
Yeah, and the thing that
On
I
a lot
like
of
about it
properties.
is,
I totally agree with what you just said, and to protect the owner, because the owner always goes, every Tom, Dick, and Harry who comes works for me, I don't want them to have a piece of my business. And, well, in order for an employee to qualify, typically they have to go 48 to 54 months before their interest in the ESOP vests.
right.
The funny thing also.
48 months and is doing wonderful work for you. Man, you should want to.
You want to keep them.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because we're also talking about specifically like maybe the state of California, and in addition to the fact that we are understaffed in some cases, we also have issues like the strain against union and things of that nature, right? In some of these markets, and it's interesting that a smart company could internally actually motivate and activate loyalty through something of this nature that actually only makes the asset even more valuable. Should they hold it, or should they basically look to sell it? Because that now comes with as an additional strength to that property.
Well, exactly, and well, that's
very
that's
smart,
why it works
actually,
out
very
for
smart.
the management company, because a lot of times they don't own the asset.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
they're running it. Okay, and they're employees. So some of the deals that I'm involved with, it's like, no, I don't want the employees. I want a third-party management company in there. Okay, now as a management company, I want to build loyalty. I want to build retention. I want to promote from within. I also want to have the ability to go to other areas, whether it's at a high school or a junior college level, and start doing some recruiting and that type of thing. And I think it's a great idea for management companies.
I mean,
I really do.
return on. What did you say, Mitch? Like 30%? What were we talking about? Was it 30?
You have to donate the 30%. You
Right.
basically double the tax savings. If you save $1 million in tax,
Yeah.
Right.
in the example I gave you, in over 10 years, that $1 million properly invested should definitely turn into $2 million.
But I mean, I think that's just the you're just scratching the surface on something that's obviously beneficial. But I think there's other layers to this from operations too, that a smart company in this changing market and place that we're dealing with changing regulations in places like California, you could really vest your employees or vest people that have now a vested interest in the success of the property, and that makes things run a lot smoother if they have a piece of the
Absolutely.
pie. I mean, that's actually very smart.
Okay, Mitch, now that we've generated all this heat for you, we're going to have all these management companies call you. Give yourself a shameless plug.
And the website too, Mitch.
So the website is, what is my website? MillerLG.com.
Miller LG for MillerLawGroup.com, yes.
Got to give him a phone number and an email?
And I had to go through a trademark, a full-blown trademark litigation to keep Miller Law Group as the name of my company. And, and after I used to have a partner, and the partner left and all of that, so but I won't bore you with that story. But
Another show.
Shameless plug. But, there's, I like to just approach, there's a lot of franchise issues out there right now, and there's a lot of intellectual property issues, which we're talking about hotel management companies. And, management companies definitely need in their templates now to deal with issues of intellectual property, and it's going to be a complete battle. It's going to be an interesting battle. So you have let's call them Tier A franchisors out there. We all know who those are. And they lay claim these days to all intellectual property created at the property level.
Right.
So what's it say? Craig's Bomb, new cocktail created, and it just catches on like wildfire.
Hey, let's pick it up because I'm Irish bomb. Okay, got it.
There you go, Craig's Irish
I think I've been to some of those places that have that on their menu. Actually, Mitch, there's a few of them are in this area for some odd reason.
Well, so it was either. So let's say the management company created that. Well, should the management company own that intellectual property? Well, the management company is the agent of the owner.
Right.
And so probably it's by default anyway. It's the owner's property.
Correct.
In that situation. But here, by contract, the gosh darn franchisor lays claim to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's just not right. I mean, there may be use, but the equitable way to deal with this is through joint kinds of use provisions that we can all benefit from.
Right.
But again, management companies, though, need to make sure that they carve out their secret sauce and recipes and marketing strategies that they may use in terms of
he's an idealist, isn't he?
helping business hotels succeed and perform optimally.
I'm getting a sense that you're an idealist, Mitch. Which God bless you, honestly. But I'm getting a sense that you're really a good guy and an idealist. And you're right. There should be a win-win for everybody instead of everybody just trying to kind of corner the market for themselves.
Hey, Mitch, thank you for joining us today. You want to give everybody your email address, your website, and a phone number?
Sure. So my email address is mmiller@millerlg.com. The website is www.millerlg.com. And my phone number is 650-566-2290. And we love this industry. I've worked behind the bar. I've worked in all aspects of this industry, created menus to cook and build hotels. I just love hotels.
Don't we all? It's in our DNA. So
there you go.
Hey, Mitch, thank you very much. And before we sign off today, I want to thank Mitch for joining us. He's been a great friend and a great ally and supporter of the California
Mitch. It was a pleasure.
Lodging Investment Conference. I want to thank my co-host, Radney Gantos, and the Rad Life was earlier today, so he's looking to get out of the studio. And please join Rad for that show and also his streaming shows. Okay, you've got at least one up right now.
We just launched or dropped a new episode of Selling the Lux Life.
Okay, great. So join Rad for Selling the Lux Life. You can join me for my streaming show. Check out California 3x10 as I am crisscrossing California and going on the road.
So if you guys are out there, watch out for him.
Yes. Luckily, I'm not driving. But a big shout out to my daughter-in-law, Carissa. I love you. Thank you for organizing the Mother's Day celebration. I don't know how you do it with the kids and my son and everybody else, but you are phenomenal, and I love you very much. I will see you guys all soon, and tell my grandson Grandpa loves him, okay? Thank you.
Thanks,
Aloha.
Mitch. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you both.
Thank you for being our guest today on Checkout California. We look forward to having you as a guest with us again in 2 weeks. Until then, You can always reach us through our Checkout California Facebook page or by emailing us at checkoutcalifornia@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. So do let us know what you think of the show and what areas of interest you'd like to see us cover in the future. Your feedback is very important to us as we continue to bring you the best hospitality our Golden State has to offer. Until next time, may all your days be filled with sunsets and palm trees. Now, go experience and check out California.